My name is Daniel Cross, and today I want to talk to you guys about Advanced Warfare competitive gameplay, and I also just wanted to explain that, this is some older assault rifle gameplay from me that you guys usually don't see. I posted this a couple times, usually when I actually have a topic that I want to talk about. It's a good filler. It allows people that are unfamiliar with my channel to kind of relate to me. And I know that a lot of you guys don't know me since you're actually new to my channel, but I'm primarily a Call of Duty sniper. I love sniping. I like quickscoping and stuff like that, making wow moments where people just go, oh geez, you can actually do that. But at the same time, I do come from a somewhat competitive gameplay background where I used to play Search and Destroy, make montages in Search and Destroy. I was very competitive, always trying to get that win, and especially in World at War. I was ranked like 8th for wins in World at War at one point in time. I think it was at least under the top 25. I think it was 8th or 11th before there were a lot of hackers and stuff like that knocked me out. But other than that, guys, I've always played the game to actually be aggressive and actually be one of those dominant players. Even as a sniper, I've always felt that you need to use quickscoping as a tool to make yourself better and allow you to just be an overall elite, or just kill everyone on the map as far as you can, any way possible, and just be really good about it. Always outplay people. That's kind of my motto. And when it comes to competitive gameplay, this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I wanted to address something that Drifter made. He made a competitive gameplay video on terms of restrictions and how to make it better. And the idea here is that there are two communities. There's a casual community, which in Call of Duty is absolutely massive. It outweighs the competitive community. When you have 25 million people buying a Call of Duty game, and only a couple 100,000 or maybe close to 1 million or so really care about competitive, that's a huge gap. And the idea here is trying to minimize that gap and fix that gap. Now, if you're a pro player, why would you want this to happen? Well, if you wanted this to happen, obviously it would increase your audience. It would increase the amount of people that are going to start following you and paying attention to your game, the amount of people involved in your game, obviously causing more money and more funding to be put into your game, allowing you guys to have better positions. Now, that's just the short-term kind of small look at it. Now, we can actually talk about what this would do to the game and long-term potential. Obviously, we want to look at other games that have done something similar to this topic that I'm going to address right now. When it comes down to competitive gameplay, Call of Duty is something that people like to play casually. They get on to kill their friends and play with their friends. Now, the competitive aspect to it is completely irrelevant. Like, no one even really knows about it unless you become a very in-depth player. Like, you actually kind of immerse yourself with this game, and then you kind of start learning about game battles and things like that. There's nothing really there initially that tells you that Call of Duty is a competitive-based game. It's kind of always off on its own island, for example, I guess is a good way to put this. It's off in its own little world. Now, when it comes to other games in the past that have done very well competitively, they're designed that way from the beginning. If you look at Counter-Strike Go, CSGO is probably the most popular one right now, but CS has been around for at least 15 years, and it's still one of the most played FPS games. In terms of competitive, the same game that you play at home is the same game that they play on main stage. Now, there's not a lot of restrictions within this game, but what that does is it opens people being to be very familiar with what they're playing. They play the same thing that the pros play, so obviously they know that it is a competitive setting and it can be competitive, and that's how it's played. At tournaments, they're like, oh, I can do this, and they want to go out and they want to try that. League of Legends is also another example of this, but it's a little bit more extensive. League of Legends has about like 100-some plus characters, maybe 150, and there's tons of items in that game. And literally the devs try their hardest to balance every single thing or every single aspect of that game so pro players can play with the same thing that the average player plays at home. And overall, this causes people to fix the game. It makes a more balanced game, a more even game, instead of Call of Duty where you have a game that's kind of lopsided. Basically what they do is they create Call of Duty, and then the pros get it, and they go, all right, we're going to tear this down to basic, bare bones in a sense. We're going to make it really restricted, and we're going to limit it. Now, the problem with that is it causes people to be kind of like, they don't really recognize it. They kind of like, at first glance, they see it, and they go, this isn't the Call of Duty that I know, and I don't like playing like this. I don't like, this weapon. Why can't I use this, and why can't I use that? And it causes people to be somewhat unfamiliar with it, and that causes players to be disinterested. So when it comes to Call of Duty, or at least the pro scene, the approach that I would like to see, maybe we're a couple steps ahead, is having a game that is developed for competitive, but on a mass scale. Like, you get this basic game, and then everyone plays the same thing, and instead of just banning something that is annoying in competitive gameplay, you can sit here and you go, okay, Why is it annoying? How can we fix that and make it to where it'll actually work in competitive gameplay instead of cutting it completely from the game itself, or at least the competitive MLG rule set? Not only will this increase the amount of people that are interested in Call of Duty, it would probably increase the amount of people actually wanting to watch and at least play it in terms of competitive. Getting people to actually enjoy the game would be huge. League play is obviously something online that people do enjoy, but at the same time, Clan Wars is even more popular because it appeals to more people, that casual audience. And the casual audience is huge. The idea here is to get them to relate with competitive by initializing the same game. If you're all playing the same thing, obviously you're going to be more interested in actually trying competitive than going, oh, here's a game mode that has a bunch of restricted stuff that you're not necessarily interested in. Anyway, you should probably play that because that's your only choice. At the same time, though, obviously there are things in the game that do need to be patched and do need to be addressed because it could lower skill gap to a point that you're uncomfortable, or it's just not necessarily the type of thing that you want in competitive. Call of Duty is a little bit different than other FPS games. It's kind of hard to compare them to other games. That's not the idea, but what you're comparing here is the actual concept and trying to cause the audiences to be interested in playing competitive on a different scale. We might be a few steps ahead, might be a few years ahead, but I definitely feel that going forward into the future, this is something that could be addressed very well in terms of having devs being dedicated to developing the game in terms of that competitive gameplay style, as well as having a Call of Duty online function that's something that you play for an extended period of time. The only downside there is replayability. How many people really want to play the same game for the next 10 years? And the answer I have to that is a lot of the hardcore fans that played Counter-Strike still play Counter-Strike. It's one of those games that was so well made, so well balanced, that people just love to play it, and they continue to play it because it's one of the most played FPS games, period, in history. I think that's kind of interesting that it stands on its own over 15 years. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a lot to kind of process here. The idea is not necessarily to just limit things because they're annoying. It's trying to balance the game for everyone as a community to make Call of Duty better as a platform, as a game, in terms of competitive as well. You kind of get one of those things that goes both ways. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have a lot more content up on my channel. I'm going to be traveling to PAX soon, so I might have a few days where I don't post. Don't panic, I will be back soon to entertain you all. Thank you guys for the support I've had throughout the continuous week of just Advanced Warfare growth. You guys are insane in terms of liking my videos. I really appreciate it. You've done a great job with that, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future. As always, guys, take care.